been asking me for years to put out more tutorials on color grading V-log footage. So I kind of went one step further, and I thought it would just be easier and better to develop a power grade that I could sell on my store that you could take and use on your own footage. It's called Hackney. I soft launched it at the end of last year, and in this video we're going to look through what you can do with Hackney, introduce you to it, and go through a few example grades. Hackney is available both as a power grade for Resolve or as a LUT pack. If you buy the power grade, it also comes with the LUT pack. Hackney isn't just like a look that you slap on your footage and finish. I mean, you can do that, of course. There are a bunch of presets available in the pack. It's designed to give you flexibility to build and tailor your own looks. So there's loads of elements within the power grade that you can enable or disable to build custom looks. So whatever your taste is, you should be able to build something relatively easily, tailored specifically to you. Both versions have been heavily discounted since I soft launched it at the end of last year. That discount is going to apply for only 2 more weeks following the publishing of this video. After that, it goes up to the full price, so if you want to grab it at a discount, act quick. Okay, so we're in Resolve and we've got the Hackney Powergrade up here. If you've already purchased the Hackney Powergrade, you will notice that there are a few updates, and this has been pushed out as a free update, so you just need to re-download it to get the updated structure. I've improved the soften node, I've moved the grain node, and I've also improved the third film tone look as well, just to get a slightly nicer look there. But let's quickly go through the Powergrade and just talk through it. So the Powergrade and the LUT pack are basically centered around 2 central LUTs. So when you're working with the power grade, you need to apply one of these LUTs first, which is basically the V-log to Rec 709 conversion. So there's a main LUT, and then there's a warmer version. And then with both of those, there are also desaturated versions of the main look as well. And to be honest, most often I tend to use the desaturated versions. They're slightly subtler, but if you want a bit more pop and saturation, then you've got those options as well. And there's also a desaturation node here, so you can also dial in your own level of desaturation as well. This power grade is basically designed to give you loads of customization and loads of flexibility in designing and tailoring your own looks. Now, if you're not working in Resolve, don't worry, because I've also designed the LUT pack to have this same flexibility and customization. So what I've designed here are my stackable LUTs, and this basically replicates this node structure, but within a LUT-based workflow. So you can basically stack LUTs to get the same effects. And I've labeled these LUTs either with before or after, and that just tells you whether you should add them before the main LUT or after it. The only thing that you can't deliver in LUTs are the effects, like grain and bloom and softening. Those are only things that you can get in Resolve. So let's quickly go through this power grade so you can see what each node does. So at the top, the first 2 nodes are pretty simple. They're exposure and white balance nodes. These are where you'll make your main corrections. You can do this however you want, but in the HDR wheels, I have pre-configured them to be within the Panasonic V-gamut and V-log color space. So if you want to make really accurate color space aware changes, use the HDR wheel. So if you, for example, wanted to make color temperature changes, this will give you the most accurate modifications, similar to if you were to make these changes in camera. The next row are my film tone creative looks. These are designed to be used individually, although I guess you could experiment stacking them and creating your own creative looks if you want to. With all of these nodes and effects, the intention is that you should dial in the intensity to taste. So don't just go with the presets that I provided with. Of course you can, but you should definitely experiment under the key output tab and dial in the intensity of each node to get the looks that you want. So by default, the film tones are dialed in at 0.75. If you want to apply them with more intensity, take them up to 1. Or if you want to decrease the intensity, just dial it in here. A lot of the time with these creative looks, I like to use them, but I like to dial them right back just so there's a subtle hint of them coming through. Film tone 1 is basically designed to give you a bit of magenta in the shadows. Film tone 2 is basically pushing a bit more green and grunge into the image. Film tone 3 is designed to be more of a orange and teal look, and then the final 2 are basically black and white presets with different contrast. The next 2 nodes are basically saturation. So the first one is a green tab. It basically boosts the greens and gives you very lush looking greens. Again, you can adjust the intensity to taste. If it's too strong, dial it right back and just get a hint of it. Or if you want to push it to the max, take it to the max. The next node is color density, so that just gives you richer, denser colors. It might make the image feel a little bit darker, so just be aware of that. And again, you can dial it in under the key output. The next node basically deal with texture. So because Lumix cameras are quite sharp, I've got a softening node here. Again, dial it into taste. The next node here is bloom, so that adds a little bit of highlight, bloom and glow, similar to like using a diffusion filter. Again, dial that into taste. Next one is grain, pretty self-explanatory, adds some grain texture to the image. The next one is a vignette, again, self-explanatory, and you can obviously adjust the size of that vignette if you want to bring it in and focus more on your subject. The final row are just finishing nodes, so we've got a desaturation node here. Again, you can dial that in to taste. The next node is teal boost. This will add a lot of saturation into the blue and cyan colors in the image, so it's very good for boosting the sky. It will add a little bit more saturation overall to the image, so just be careful with that. And then these final two nodes here are punch. That basically adds contrast to the image and a little bit of sharpening. Then we've got fade, which basically just does the opposite. It reduces contrast. And then the final node here is called grunge, and that's basically just adding a bit of green to the image, a bit of a subtle green wash that will just grunge it up a little bit. And the idea with this Powergrade is ultimately to give you the tools to create your own looks and experiment, and hopefully allow it to be flexible enough to work across a huge range of different projects. I'm going to step you through a quick grade now just to give you a flavor of what you can do with this. This is an image of Steph shot on the LUMIX S1 Mark II on the 24-60 lens in 5.1K open gates. So let's start off by adding our LUT. I think I'm going to start off with maybe this warm desaturated LUT to get us started. So there we go, that's doing our V-log to Rec 709 transform. And let's have a look about what we want to do. So maybe I'll go into the white balance and I'm going to take some of that warmth out, just a bit under the HDR wheels, somewhere about there. And then in terms of film tone, that's quite nice, but maybe, yeah, I'm going to add film tone 1 and I'm going to dial it right back to 0.3. So you can see just a nice subtle look here. Maybe I will raise exposure just a fraction there. Okay, that's looking good. Next, I'm going to go to color density. That's quite nice. I'm just going to roll that back a little bit, maybe about 0.5 around there. The greens, you can see that's quite intense. That's quite nice. But why don't we just roll that back? Again, I always think subtlety is key here, and taking it down to 0 and then rolling it back up is always a nice way of finding where you want to go. So there you can see just very subtle on those trees. Maybe take it down to 0.2. Yeah, I like that. Okay, and then on the texture row here, let's have a look. So it is looking quite sharp. If you look at her hair and eyelashes, it's a little sharper than I would like. It's shot on a modern lens, so I'm going to add the soften node. And you can see there, I mean, I don't know if this is coming through on YouTube. If I zoom in on the texture of the jumper, you can see there it is having a softening effect, and on her face and skin, you can see it has quite a dramatic effect there. And again, you can roll this back a little bit if it's too strong for you. So maybe we go for like 0.5 there. And you can see that just softens the image up and makes it look a little bit less harsh. Okay, let's just reset that. Now bloom, again, it's to taste, whether you want that or not. I think I do, I quite like it. It just adds maybe like another bit of like softening effect to the image. So again, subtle is nice, something around there, 0.2 is good. I'll add some grain. Again, you can always go in and change the grain settings if you want to affect those. Don't have to always stick with the presets. But again, the grain is preset at quite a subtle level. And then I'm going to add the vignette. And I'm just going to reduce the size and bring it a bit more around Steph, just to bring a bit more attention to her up there. And then do we need to add any desaturation? I don't think we do, because we started with the more desaturated LUT, but say we did, maybe again, just like 0.2, just pull a little bit out of it. Maybe there. Not too bad. Teal boost. I could use this, but I'm not going to use it this time. Although it's quite nice actually. Punch. Do we want to add more contrast to this? Or do we want to fade it? Maybe we will fade it this time. There. That's looking quite nice. And then do we want to add some grunge at the end? I think we'll keep it off for now. So you can see quite quickly we've got an image that's looking quite nice. If you wanted to do further modifications, a few other things you could do is you could add 2 nodes here. Maybe you want to correct or change the skin tone. If you do, you could just add a qualifier there. Then you could just qualify the skin tone. Let's do this very quickly. Qualify the skin tone, maybe like something around there. And if you wanted to correct that skin tone for whatever reason, we're getting a bit of red bounce on her skin tone from her jumper, so maybe we want to pull a bit of red out. There. Very subtle. And then one other thing you could do, as long as you've got a nice clean key, is you can pull the alpha, the mask, into the next node. You can invert that mask, so basically telling Resolve to pay attention to everything outside of the skin tone that we've qualified. And then you can make changes outside of the skin tone, like pull down the exposure a bit, maybe pull down the saturation a little bit. And that will just help bring a little bit more attention to Steph and her skin tone. Obviously be careful. This is very reliant on a quality. This is very reliant on a good quality qualification, but that's just like an extra little modification that you can do. So always think about what else you can add. You don't have to stick to just the Powergrade. Obviously you can modify it and add in your own modifications as well. So here's another image of Steph. This is shot on the LUMIX S1R Mark II, I think again on the 24-60. Now I want to show you an example where we need to do a bit more correction on the image. So this image is actually quite underexposed. So if we pull, say, the 709 LUT onto it, you can see the image is underexposed and it's also been shot a little bit warmer than maybe we want it to be. So let's have a look at how we would end up bringing this image back to a place where we want it. First, I'll be going to my exposure node. That's the main thing we want to correct. And I would say maybe like 1.4 there, maybe somewhere about there to bring the exposure more in line with what we want. Then I'm going to go into my white balance tab and maybe just roll back some of that warmth. Let's say we want to be around there. That's beginning to look good. Maybe go into the color density, and I think that's maybe a little bit too strong, so I'm going to dial this right back to maybe 0.3. That's not looking too bad. And then under the film tone, let's have a look. That's quite nice, black and white. Let's just go with film tone. Let's go with film tone 2. But we're going to dial it right back. So something around there. It's looking quite nice. Okay, next we're going to soften the image up a bit. Maybe take it back a little bit. Bloom. I don't think it needs bloom, but if I was going to add bloom to this particular shot, I would dial it right back. Maybe just a hint of it there. I'm going to add the vignette and I'm going to bring it in a bit. So it's focused on Steph there. And again, you can increase the settings to your taste as well. So maybe I'll increase that softness there. See the vignette's working there. Desaturation. Let's try that at 0.3. It's not too bad actually. It just makes it look a little bit more subtle. What do we want here? Do we want anything else? Maybe I'll just increase the exposure a little bit now. Looking quite nice. Yeah, I'm liking that. We could have some grain as well. And then very quickly, we've kind of got the image where we want. Do we want to add grunge? I'll add the grunge. You can see it's very subtle. And then I'm going to maybe add that fade in and dial it right back to 0.2. Maybe 0.3. Yeah, I like that. And that's like a nice, subtle, very natural looking image now. and it's been really quick and easy just to dial that in. And you know, if you wanted to change that film tone, add a bit more magenta, you can see it has a nice effect on the image, and it gives you some very quick different options that you can default to. So the cooler one, again, really nice. Greens, I mean, there isn't a lot of green in the image, but you can see that will be affecting these leaves in the background, so I'll add that. And that's it. That's our overall image. I think it's looking really nice, and in my opinion, that was really quick and simple to get to. So for those of you who bought the LUT pack, I want to show you how the stackable LUT system works and how it allows you to get comparable results to the Powergrade in Resolve. So in Final Cut here, we've got the same shot of Steph shot on the S1R Mark II, and we're basically going to apply the stackable LUTs the same way that we use the Powergrade in Resolve. So as before, we are going to start by applying our main Rec 709 LUT. Then we're going to do our color correction and exposure changes here. And then we'll start adding the stackable LUTs one by one. So if you don't know how to add LUTs in Final Cut, you just add the custom LUT, drag it onto the clip, and then select your LUTs from in there. So the stackable LUTs need to be applied either after or before the Rec 709 LUT, and the title of each LUT tells you where they should go. So as before, we're going to add the film tone, and instead of the key output here, you just adjust the intensity of the LUT to dial it in. So if you want it stronger, take it all the way up to 100. If you want to reduce its intensity, just slide it down. And then as we go along, I've already pre-configured these in for time. We're going to add the greens, so you can see here the leaves in the background are popping now. The color density, we're going to add that desaturation, then we're going to add the fade, and then we're going to add the grunge, and overall that gets us to a very similar place that we were able to get to in Resolve using the LUT only workflow. Obviously, you can't provide stuff like effects through a LUT workflow, but most of these programs like Final Cut 10 will have their own inbuilt effects like grain, so you can add its own grain presets and then add that at the similar points in the chain as we have in the Powergrade, and then dial that into taste, or if you've got maybe like a third-party plugin, you can use that as well. Just before we wrap up, I also wanted to show you how I use this workflow to grade my PYXIS footage, because you can push the Blackmagic RAW footage into V-Gamut and V-log under the RAW tab here, and then you can use the LUTs and workflow as you have with your LUMIX footage. So here we go with the different LUTs. You can see all looking quite nice. Let's go with the main 709 LUT. Turn that off so you can see. Just quickly grade this shot so you can see what it looks like. I would probably just reduce the exposure a bit. Maybe reduce the color temperature by 400. Maybe add a little bit of magenta in there to 1. You would maybe add the punch. It's quite nice. Color density. You just push that up a little bit. Just down a little bit more. Add the grain. Vignette, let's correct this vignette a bit. Maybe a bit of the bloom, and that's already looking really nice. Maybe a bit of the fade as well. And there we have it. Might add the grunge, yeah. So there we go, we've got a really nice looking grade with PYXIS 12K footage pushed into V-log with just a few minutes of grading. And again, obviously there's a ton of flexibility on what you can do with the image if you want to play around. And often when I'm shooting with my PYXIS 6K and my LUMIX cameras, I will push the 6K into V-log and grade like this to keep consistency in my color grading workflow between those two cameras. My advice, as always, is no Powergrade or LUT pack is ever going to transform rubbish looking footage. So, you know, it's not a magic bullet. If you're going to put trash in, you're going to get trash out. You still need to put the work in exposing your footage properly, using lighting to the best of your ability, framing properly. So if you can achieve all of that and get the image into Resolve looking as good as it can, then you're always going to have a much better result when it comes to using someone's Powergrade and LUT, because all you're going to be doing there is just sprinkling on some extra magic. So I launched Hackney just before Christmas and I've kept it at a discounted rate for about a month now, but 2 weeks following this video is going to go back to the full retail rate. So if you want to pick it up at this lower rate, now's your time. Okay, that's it. If you do have any further questions, please just put them down below. If you've picked up Hackney already, massive thank you to you. It's been great to see the initial response to it. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.